This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I am Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. Pride comes before the fall, and Pride Month is not what it once was. We will update you on the developments the last year. We covered this topic last year as Pride Month has kind of lost its luster and popularity, and people just don't care as much. Why is that? We will look at that and update you on a couple of things on what corporate America is doing or not doing in regards to Pride Month, a very important cultural topic as it has been slapping us around the last 2 decades and in our face the last 2 decades. So somebody who has never been in anybody's face but has been slapped around is Mr. Steve Carlin, who joins us from Wisconsin.
I've got a lot of pride this month. Pride in the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, buddy. It's coming. All right. And Heather's also here. Superman is coming out this summer, but already, and I've seen it, and it's amazing, the last, I don't know if he's going to really stop, Mission Impossible, Final Reckoning. Have you seen it?
No.
Have you seen it?
Not yet.
You know, this is a patriotic thing to do because Tom Cruise is like hand over heart, and he keeps making all these, America's the good guy movies, and in a post-2020 world. And so you've got to go see Mission Impossible. It's shameful. We're in June, and you haven't seen it. You have sons. Like, what's wrong with you?
So the boys have seen it, actually. So this is, I really have nowhere to hide.
Our dad's a loser trip to the movie theater.
My 12-year-old has been counting down for months.
Yeah, exactly. So
I've been building up to it by watching all 7 of the previous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And besides the first one, which no one knows what that's about, including Tom Cruise, who is Job? It's just the first Mission Impossible is just Leno used to talk about this in monologue whenever it came out. He's like, no, they made Mission Impossible 2 because nobody knew what happened in the first one. They retell the story. So yeah, they're all really good.
I was slow to come around for a very actually excellent reason, which is growing up in the 90s, the standard was the GoldenEye 007 video game, right? Like, how many hours did you kill on that in the 90s?
Awesome.
Can't count them. You got rumble packs on your N64, playing the video game all the time. And so I had this devotion.
I know you're walking around shooting, like, Russian terrorists, but I never saw that game as violent. Like, then later, well, we used to sound like old men. Then later on, like, what the kids play now, it for some reason, it was just different.
It's no Grand Theft Auto.
I know. The stuff that was just like, now it's so crazy and gory and violent. And of course, we grew up in a time where school shooters didn't exist. So I know the culture's changed on this. But the 007, what was great is I think it was like a 45, right? That he had, that he carried in his tuxedo. But it has endless amounts of bullets. You're just walking around.
Right.
Like,
you count and you're like,
you're
I
walking.
didn't see him change out.
No, he never changed his magazine out. He never had to load bullets in the magazine. He's just his perpetual ammo.
But that led me to be devoted to 007, even though I didn't watch those movies either. And then as an adult, I started watching the movies. It was like, I don't really like the James Bond all that much, and I do like the Mission Impossible. The video game sullied me for decades.
I'm the same. I did not like Mission Impossible 1 as a kid. I don't know what it is now. I can't figure it out. So I sure as heck didn't know when I was 12 years old or 11, whatever I was. So I ignored all the Mission Impossibles. I thought it was dumb, and I loved Tom Cruise. And I was like, I don't know. He's Top Gun. He's A Few Good Men. Why is he doing just these action things all the time now? And so I ignored them until the last one came out. And I got on Amazon, and you could buy all the Mission Impossibles on Blu-ray for $29. Like 1 through 6. Yeah. So we had a marathon. This was 2 years ago, I guess, when it came. We had a marathon in the house with the boys. I absolutely loved them. it also like coincided with when I had my foot surgery. So that was like, once my foot's healed, I'll start jumping off of trains and on the helicopter. But it was it's one of those things where I kind of skipped them, and then later on in life went back and watched them. Like, these are awesome. So now I'm into it, and I love Tom Cruise. I love all those.
We went and saw the movie last year, and
it was 2 years ago, right?
2 years ago already.
Producers that follow movies, yes.
Oh my goodness,
it was
time does fly.
23.
Okay,
Summer of 23 is when it came out.
So Top Gun was last year then?
No, Top Gun 2 was 22.
I wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Am I wrong?
You're wrong.
Producer John?
Never be over to
Huh?
Producer David.
I'm correct.
1 year before Mission.
Thank you, Damon.
all right.
Then Mission was last year because I was not here in 22.
No. Top Gun 2 came out Memorial Day weekend of 2022. Then Mission Impossible 7, I don't know their little names, came out Memorial Day weekend of 2023.
Okay. Maybe
Last
right
year,
after
nothing.
No, not 22.
Now this year, because Top Gun 2 was delayed because of COVID.
Yes.
And
yeah.
then, man, when they released it,
Okay.
air was fresher.
But Mission Impossible, here's the thing. So you've seen Final Reckoning. You're cooler than
Yes.
us.
The listeners have seen it.
We
So-
were waiting to see it with you, and it's like you cheated on us.
Yes, basically. But
I
here's,
have children.
here's
What do
the-
I got to take you to the movie now too? I had kids, and when you come back, later in Pride Month, you'll be here again. We'll go. It'll still be out. So
Okay.
that'll
All
be
right.
my second time.
Here's a theme though. That
Teenagers loved it. Everybody loved it.
Here's a theme that I wonder if y'all noticed that is equally important as all the other themes, which is, was his hair long or short?
It's short.
You
I
notice
mean,
that switches back
It
and
does
forth?
switch every other one. So going into it, I said, well, his hair's going to be long because it's short in the last one.
Yes, that's what
And somehow
he broke the
Declan, my
pattern.
10-year-old, was like, no, it's short. I saw the preview.
Oh, well, Declan.
Do you think in, say,
But it may be long, it may be short. I don't want to give it away.
we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of America.
Yes, we
When
are.
another 250 years pass and the history books point back at how our country just degenerated and 2020 was a disaster, and then we had the great comeback, and America's back, baby. We are so back. Everybody knows it. Are the history books going to point to Tom Cruise?
Yes.
And Top Gun and Mission
Yeah,
Impossible?
if you want to get deep, I'll follow you. 2022, May of 2022, Top Gun 2 comes out, 30 some odd years overdue. And a month later, Roe v. Wade is overturned. That's just like 30 days. Tom Cruise overturned Roe v. Wade.
Has to be related.
You could argue. And then, Val Kilmer was in it. It was awesome.
Okay.
Well, I think we were so worn out with Hollywood that we're like, they're going to ruin Top Gun 2.
Yes.
Goose's son will be trans.
Totally had a low bar.
Me too. And I was like,
going in. Yeah.
they're going to, as Matt Britton said, he's like, they're going to ruin it, and I'm still going to see it 10 times. And so when we went, I mean, I was just like, I kept waiting for it, and I kept hitting Mary Lisa, which she wasn't appreciative of, including when just the Paramount Stars came over
Yeah.
and the same music from the first one. I hit her, and I said, this is going to be awesome. And so she's like, quit. And they're like, when Penny came out, I was like, that's Penny Benjamin. He's like, I don't know who that is. I said, it's from, they did the flyover of her house, One Admiral's Daughter. She's like, quit commenting during the movie. Yeah. But halfway through, like, she looked at me and she's like, this is so good. I was like, it is. It was very good. So I went the next day with the children.
All right.
I knew there was something last summer. Now I remember. Twisters was the big thing.
That's what we
Oh,
went.
yeah.
And that was good, but disappointing. And they didn't even, I guess this is the summer movie podcast and the Pride Month podcast. They didn't reference the first one. And the first one had all these cool characters that
It
you
was
wanted
a
to hang out with.
standalone sequel, is what they called it.
That's dumb.
Back in the day, there was a phrase for that, and I believe it was direct to VHS.
Yeah, seriously. No, the action was
VHS.
cool. The tornadoes, I was terrified of parts of that movie. But it just wasn't, there was no character development at all. You didn't have, what's his face, Seymour Hoffman and his cool OU hat running around, demanding steaks from Aunt Meg. So anyways, yeah, well, that's what we saw last year is
Yes.
Twisters.
Yes.
So I guess in a couple of weeks, the three of us will go when we're back here.
There you go.
But it is a little disappointing that y'all haven't seen it. Your kids have seen it, but you haven't seen it.
That's what we really should focus on.
I will rectify this as soon as I can.
And I'm not going to talk about how good or not good the movie is. It's definitely worth seeing. But I have to prepare myself for you hating it because you find a way to ruin great things in our world.
That's not very nice.
You don't drink coffee? It's not. I'm not trying to be nice. You don't drink coffee, which you said
Accurate.
is a personal choice.
I just don't like it.
That just makes no sense to me. That you just don't.
Doesn't compute with me either.
Yeah. So, anyways, do we have anything else to add on this topic? Can we move on?
Just what did you just say about me? I find a way to ruin many of the good things in life.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, many of the great things.
Come a long way from the intro where you said that. Well, no, actually, you said I get slapped around a lot in the intro. So
There you go.
I've said a lot
Still
of good
fulfilling
things.
that prophecy.
Hey, I've said a lot of good things about you in life. This is not one of them.
There have been a lot of kind intros in recent weeks and months, and I think I let my guard down.
Yeah.
Now you hit me once, and then you hit me with a second barrel
I'm just
in short
saying,
succession.
I'm just saying you make me nervous when it comes to like movies that I like, songs that I like.
okay.
Luke
This
Bryan.
Oh, here we go.
You hate Luke Bryan. The guy's like a martyr for the faith. He's like lost everybody.
my friend Adam, who you have met. Adam was over at my house, and we were watching a movie or going to a baseball game or something like that. And he said, A, I like the first part of the podcast the most because they make fun of you. And B, Sean is right. Luke Bryan really did have a hard life.
And you're a jerk. Oh my goodness. Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
It is Pride Month, according to some. So this is all changing in a way that nobody thought it would 10 years ago. We've often referenced, out of respect, we don't agree with them, but the effectiveness of the homosexual movement. So you're in '08, and Obama is marriages between a man and a woman. California referendum fails twice. I was out there visiting campaigns during that fall a lot. It was wild. The Prop 8 was wild. And they won. The pro-marriage, we're not going to destroy Western civilization side, won.
And that was really the genesis of the West Coast Walk for Life.
You're right.
Started out as a pro-marriage event, and they transformed it into a pro-life event.
Yeah, and the two are directly linked. I mean, you
Yes.
can't say that we're going to snuff out the fruit of marriage by brutally aborting a baby, but we're never going to touch the institution that produces that fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's totally separate topics. No, it's not. And both of them are based on sex without responsibility. And so that, sort of unhealthy marriage of abortion and gay rights, that's why some people will get in the pro-life movement and they're like, why are gay people against abortion or for abortion? What do they care? They, particularly gay men. And it's like, because it supports, in their mind, sexual license and freedom. So, '08, that happens. They just don't give up, all or none, bulldoze their way into pop culture, bulldoze their way into politics, and 7 short years later, it's the law of the land in 2015 with the Supreme Court, and the White House has the rainbow lighting on it. That was a really dark day. I was there for that. I was outside the Supreme Court.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. And I had like a deep moment of what was America supposed to be? Like what can we are we actually going to fail? Like in 50 years, not 500. I remember I went back and like read the Federalist Papers. Like I've read some like just US history because our Supreme Court just redefined what marriage is. We just made it up out of the middle of nowhere, which is what Scalia did. If you want great reading, there's Scalia's Dissent, which is awesome and comical, and Alito's. And both of them came true. So one of the things Alito says is we're now putting Americans in a position where they can only whisper their beliefs in the privacy of their own home out of fear of retribution or loss of employment, which has totally happened. But that's slowing down the last 3 years.
And this is great because for so many years, what did we say? We said on all of the Christian family, life, goodness, Americana issues, abortion was the only issue in which Christians were winning. And now we've opened up a second front. Now there's progress being made both on abortion and progress being made on defending the family.
I think that the front of the victories in the homosexual movement is repairing the dam. It was just like a bloodbath. It was like getting pounded with the public thing that you must celebrate my sexual acts. It's not that you tolerate it.
Yeah.
It's not that you'll hire me.
Further than that.
Yeah. It's not the discrimination thing. We're way past that. It's that you have to accept it. And that's not even good enough. You have to celebrate it and teach it to your kids. And that part is what has stopped. I think that the most Americans are totally fine with probably gay marriage.
Yeah.
But the numbers are moving in the right direction on that too, which has sort of blocked this narrative of inevitable one-way progress. I think sometimes it's been long enough now that it's worth sort of reopening the narrative that came out of the Obama administration where he runs for president in 2008, as we talked about. And this is the moment where the planet begins to heal and the oceans quit rising. There was this whole idea of like, great, the Messiah is here. And that kind of carried on. That paved the way for 2020, right? It's this everything progress. There's the irresistible turning of the tides, and it's all over. And nobody thought it was possible. 2 years ago at this point, nobody thought it was possible that you would see any rollback whatsoever. And so I think this is a huge shift to the narrative and just even sort of the consciousness of the nation. And it's forced, I think, the progressives to reckon with the fact that they are not inevitable. And I think it's been a huge encouragement to the conservatives and to the Christians to think, okay, we're not just trying to slow the decay of our country. There are things we can do to reverse the decay of our country.
That's what's been, I guess, because I feel like we've been so burned. Part of me is still, like, you've got these great statistics here showing some of the corporations and how they've rolled back, which I want to get into. But I still kind of think, especially before I see stuff like this, like, I think it's too good to be true. I think they're just subtly backing down for the time being until they can force their way back in.
That's true. But 3 years ago, I think if you ask pro-family, pro-life Christians, it's like, no, it's all over. America's over. We've talked about that. Like, what does it mean America's over? But everyone, America's over. This is it. The Constitution's gone out the window. Yeah. There was sort of this idea that like we almost had to accelerate the decline and hit rock bottom so we could come back. And I think that some of these things that we're talking about and that we will talk about on this episode show that no, in any given moment, everything is up for grabs. We do not have to accept that we have to hit rock bottom.
Well, and one of the problems with, I think, the trans people, that's definitely turning around. But those who identify as gay or lesbian or any of the 17 letters after that, is that this became a Christian point where you are not allowed to love the sinner and hate the sin. That they just roll their eyes at that. Mm-hmm. And it's a very big disservice to those people that we just affirm them. You know, and there's the other part, which is go have sex with whoever you want. I don't care. But just don't tell me about it, and don't tell me that somehow I'm a bigot if I don't agree with it. But that all got thrown out. But it is a scenario where I think just morally speaking, people think there's nothing immoral about gay sex today. And that's just not true. I mean, the Bible's clear on it. It was never really a mystery. And somehow that's the biggest shock of like America hitting rock bottom is you can have dumb laws get up to the Supreme Court and be affirmed by the Supreme Court. But I do think it reflected the culture. I think most people are like, love who you love, which was brilliant. And they got away from all that. And that's the injustice because that's just falling for the comforts of the world and the affirmation of the world over the affirmation of God. That's not a very popular view, but that's the realistic one of this is how America is. If you want to criticize America, don't criticize us because we enforce, the border laws on our books. Criticize us because we're sick culturally and we think, yeah, gay sex is totally fine. And that's That's just, not the case. And the other tie-in with abortion, as you were saying this is a big thing when you say, I'm against abortion. Wait till your daughter's raped and has to get an abortion. And when you're against homosexuality, wait until your son's gay. And it's like, that's not, which I've had a relative say to me, but that's a situation where, what's wrong with it? Like, why would I celebrate it? I forget the study where they polled the people that supported homosexual behavior and homosexual, and they asked them to, do you find anything morally wrong with it? No. Would you want your kid to be gay? No. It's one of the, just like, naturally, I guess it makes sense for, abortion. Is it wrong? No, it's perfectly fine. Would you want your daughter to have one? No. Well, there's got to be something wrong with it if nobody wants their kids to participate in it.
Yeah.
But I just think that is, half of America think that abortion is wrong. I think morally. Probably more than that. They just think that it needs to be available. But how many people think that homosexual sex is immoral?
Well, it's certainly a minority, but it's trending in the right direction. Maybe that's just a blip, and in 10 years, we're like, oh yeah, we kind of had this weird year where we got religion back in 2024, 2025. But some of the polling numbers are encouraging on that because they just overplayed their hand. And
is it on the behavior, or is it on gay marriage?
Marriage.
The polling. So I think most people are against gay marriage.
Okay.
And including, this is the group out of Miami. Or Florida somewhere. But there's a homosexual group, and they are absolutely opposed to gay marriage. So they, of course, get ostracized by their own, and they're kind of on the fringe. But their whole point is a good one, which is, I don't want to be married, that's why I'm gay, which is both funny and accurate. And so I do think most people are against gay marriage, but I think the whole sexual license thing, they're like, I don't care. Who do I care?
One thing that's encouraging that fits very much into this, which we haven't said yet, is that we can at least express our opinion on it now. A few years ago, like, you couldn't even say. There's a fascinating video where there's like a man on the street interview, and this guy's interviewing two young women. He's like, how many genders are there? And the woman said, I think there's two. And her friend's like, don't, you're on camera. You can't, like, don't.
Yeah.
And now that has changed, and that gives us the opportunity to have the discussion, to win hearts and minds. And I don't want to be too Pollyanna here, but
we have donors who are gay, and they've listened to some of the, and they email us, and very respectfully, and it's a respectfully disagree. This is kind of my story, and I always appreciate that. I mean, they're being honest. I don't agree with them, but that is, I think that sometimes what has happened since 2020 is that every person who participates in a gay lifestyle is a nut and is like these trans people trying to get, drag queens in front of 2-year-olds. And that's not the case, but it is who represents them. Mm-hmm. I think the trans movement has destroyed the homosexual movement, and that's how we got here.
Yes. Big time. And
I mean, in a way, you could just say they got greedy after 2015. And while we sit there and go, wow,
it's that narrative of inevitable progress. They just thought nothing could stop the steamroller.
Yeah.
I don't really have an analogy, but I mean, if they get gay marriage in the Supreme Court, I've got a bad one. You want to hear it?
No.
But if they get gay marriage in the Supreme Court, to me, you hit cruise control, and you don't want to divide the country on your issue. You want to it's the law of the land, which, by the way, Planned Parenthood and NARAL were very good at after Roe legalized abortion. They didn't go out and pick a bunch of battles. They didn't send out abortionists to do press conferences, like all the weird stuff they've done recently. They just were like, it's a medical need. This is the law of the land. And the gays didn't do that. They spiked the football and then, went crazy. It was like charging the mound after hitting a grand slam. It just makes no sense. That was actually a good analogy. But I'm trying to think if the Supreme Court did what they should do, which is protect the unborn under the 14th Amendment, right? just as any other group of people in America. They're protected. So abortion is gone. It's completely annihilated in America. I don't know what the analogy is for 40 Days for Life. Like that would be like us, I guess, stomping off and holding peaceful vigils outside of like animal shelters. I don't know, where we just like don't stop and think, now they're trying to protect unborn squirrels, or just getting really weird really fast. And that's what happened in 2015. And sadly, the medical community went along.
Yes. Yeah, there's got to be one of the dangers of social movements, including the pro-life movement, I suppose, is that you've got an objective in mind and you have to actually want to accomplish that objective, and then if you've accomplished it, accept victory. But there sort of becomes this sort of like permanent bureaucracy that gets entrenched in the homosexual movement, where it's just on to the next thing. It gets more and more and more extreme until you've got, grown men in wrestling competitions with girls.
I see that as a Texan, I'm sure you do too, of just, abortion essentially was banned here, and some are receiving illegal abortion pills. So they're like, nothing's changed. There are a lot of pro-lifers like, nothing's changed. They're all, some are, but the majority of women that would have had an abortion are not having it. Some are traveling, most are not. And you can look at the statistics. And when the state of Texas, in our unfortunate heyday of abortion, 365 abortions a day, 365 a day in the state of Texas, to 4 last year, and they're like, nothing's changed. It's just like, I don't think you know how to win. There's still work to be done, and we still have all these resources that prevent women from traveling, and we're doing a lot for that. But like, you're losing your mind. You don't know how to win. And I think that definitely happened with post 2015, the homosexual movement. And I think I've referenced that when Matt and I had a long conversation with this guy that was gay and a big Trumper. He was like, I can't reveal that I'm a Trumper, but anyways, we're waiting at a restaurant and talking to this guy, and somehow it turned into this big, deep conversation. He left his family and children to run off and be gay. It was awful. And he told me, my kids are tough. I said, they have to be. You left. It's like, and he said, I said, do you love your wife? He said, I love my wife. I didn't enjoy sex with her, which is so sad, because that's like, your enjoyment of sex trumped love.
Yeah.
I thought it was love whoever you want. Yeah, it was just like, what if you don't like sex with the gay dude? I get another one, I guess. But that whole thing, but he was irate at the trans movement.
Yeah.
And we were, it was kind of new. I think this was
probably 2015 or 16.
No, it was 19.
Oh, 2019.
And so it had already like picked up steam and all that. And he just went off on like the trans movement, how ridiculous it is, and all this stuff. And he's like, he said it's going to ruin our movement. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, that's not going to happen.
It categorically does not make sense to lump it in with the rest. Like the LGB part is categorically different from all the other letters that they've added at the end. It
That's
just doesn't
why
make
they've
any
been
sense.
petitioning to separate the LGB from the rest of it.
And I just don't think that's true. I think it's like playing for the Yankees. If you join the thing, which is the sexual revolution, okay, and its fruit, then you get the good with the bad and the ugly.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're going to say it's totally normal behavior for a grown man to leave his wife and children and go have multiple gay partners and walk out on his family, that is healthy. He is doing what he wants. If you're going to do that, which is based on the sexual revolution, we've covered it with lunatic Dr. Money, the founder of the trans movement. The height of the sexual revolution is no gender at all. And so to me, it's like, you're mad at the trans people, but you started this.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? So I just don't, and we're really who started it, who's just totally forgotten, no one cares about, are the feminists.
Right.
They're gone, because they're women who, I don't know, wanted careers or whatever, and abortion, and they got it, and the gays took over their whole, movement, and the trans are ruining it. So, let's go through some of these stats. Just the biggest thing that we have noticed, which we touched on last year, but has really taken off and stuck, because I was afraid, particularly this year, because we're in Trump 2.0. So it's like, whoa, we're going to bring back Pride Month because Donald Trump's evil. And the corporations continue to just bail.
Major sponsors pulling out of the San Francisco Pride event. That's left them trying to make up a deficit of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's unbelievable, though.
That is amazing. Wow.
We wouldn't have predicted that a year ago.
And it goes both ways, right? Meta, the company that runs Facebook and Instagram, is forced out because they ditched their DEI initiatives and scaled back censorship on Facebook. And so even if Facebook was willing to invest or donate or sponsor these Pride events in San Francisco Pride said, no, we don't even want your money. So they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. Meanwhile, everyone else is cutting them out of their budgets as well.
This is so funny. And of course, we've criticized St. Louis at times. Anheuser-Busch, shocker, is bailing on Pride Month in St. Louis. If anything, like smells of anything woke, Anheuser-Busch is running for the hills. I mean, talk about I don't know. Talk about saying, I'm going to play golf in the rain and getting struck by lightning 90 times with the beer can thing and just being like, okay, I'm never doing this ever again.
After 3 decades of sponsoring it.
Gosh.
I mean, who was thinking about this 3 decades ago?
Wow.
Not that many people. It was a fringe. This Pride thing was a fringe movement back in the 90s.
And I know St. Louis is a great Catholic town. I've said good things about it. But San Francisco, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a deficit because they've lost so many corporate sponsorships. Then the New York City Pride has just one corporate platinum sponsor. These are the companies that have bailed on them. MasterCard, City's very liberal, Pepsi, and Nissan.
But to be fair, they do have the support of the Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective.
When I saw this, I was trying to see, oh, is this an acronym? I was like, that doesn't.
When I saw it in my mind, I was like, I can't wait to hear Steve say that.
I'm going to say it again.
I want to hear it again.
They don't have MasterCard. They don't have Citi. They don't have Pepsi. They don't have Nissan. But New York City Pride does have the support of the Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective.
All right.
Okay, so
If the Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective is for us, who can be against us?
is this, and I don't recommend any of these T-shirts. I just want to, because there's a lot of things in there. Is this butch black women? Is that what it is?
I think that could include.
Or Latinos? You have to be of color.
Do they have a color on the flag? Or do we have to create a new flag?
I don't know.
That's a good
Masculine. So they identify as masculine, or do they identify as lesbians? Masculine identified lesbians.
Oh, you know what?
What?
Because usually in
Are
couples,
these
there's always
dudes?
a more feminine. No, there's
Okay.
always a more feminine and a more masculine in same-sex couples usually. So
Yeah.
maybe they're highlighting that, which I've never heard it highlighted like
Well,
this
everybody
before.
says which one's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're
Okay.
highlighting this on their own.
So these are the men in the lesbian relationships,
The masculine
and they're of color.
part. Yes.
This is kind of hard. So what if you're just a great, totally dedicated white lesbian from Nebraska who
You're-
shucks corn and stuff?
Strike
You
against you.
You captain of the softball team.
Unless you say I identify or I have
Well, you could say,
1/16%
I
Native
feel like
American.
I'm Native American or black or Latino. Yeah.
Maybe.
Can you imagine filling out the articles of incorporation paperwork for this group?
I'm shocked that MasterCard left and didn't want to be lumped in with masculine identified lesbians.
I do have to
collective.
say, this is my skepticism. Did these companies really leave, or are they just posting making these public announcements that we're bailing, but privately we're still going to be sending them money because there's ways to go around that.
Pride events are complaining about not having the budget.
Yeah, they're the
but
ones
they
telling
have
us.
to.
I know, but if you had, we have donors that don't really want to be publicly associated with us. But
Sure,
they give
yeah.
us money, and there's good reason for that. But that's not what this is. The Pride people are saying, you guys are losers. You don't sponsor us anymore. We're only sponsored by the Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective. The collective really cracks me up. They're kind of making it more sophisticated. 39% of corporations are scaling back external Pride Month engagements.
Bingo, external.
Well, I
Pride
always
Month
had people
engagements.
that this is like the common sense. You don't have to be for it or against it. You can just, let love be loved or whatever. It's a small group of people to really kind of go all in for, just from a corporate standpoint of marketing, which was so dumb about the Bud Light scandal. Is like, you have a bunch of guys in the Midwest that have blue collar jobs that drink your beer every night.
And we're going to enlighten them.
And you're going to put a trans Dylan, whatever that dude is, like on the can? Like, how do you think that this, and the market to me is dictating a lot of this because it was like a fad thing and we're so nice, we're so tolerant, the whole misguided mercy thing. And then they looked and they're like, we're actually not even making any money off these people.
Yeah, and I want to cheer Heather up here. By the end of this podcast, she is going to believe us, and she will believe that Kenny Chesney is pro-life.
I know.
That's been a long
there
time.
Goes my life. That's a beautiful song, and you hate Kenny. You hate Tom Cruise, and you hate the United States.
The external is down. The internal, this is sort of like the what are we doing in the HR department to support our masculine identified lesbians that work for us.
But that's different. That's just
But that's
employment
also
protection.
down.
That's down too.
That's also down. It's not down 39%, but it's also down. Also, one of the reasons we know, I think this is the case, is some of this is more public because these are public corporations. They've got shareholder responsibilities. And we know it's also true because a lot of it is being led by companies that have government contracts and they don't want to be on the wrong side of the Trump administration. And so they've had to be very deliberate and open about getting rid of this stuff. So who knows? Maybe you get President Cory Booker in 2029 and it reverses. But we have a real victory right now. And speaking of real victories... all you listeners from Idaho.
Oh, man. Our boy, Mark Fitzpatrick. There's a great Irish Mick for you. We love this guy. Do we know the name of his bar?
No, we need to find it out.
We need to find out the name of the bar. So Idaho bar owner Mark Fitzpatrick will be hosting a Hetero Awesome Fest in the month of June, baby. Road trip. When is this
Road
thing?
trip.
Who is the comedian that's like,
It's
hey,
all month.
hey, there's nothing wrong with being gay, but you know what's better than being gay? Not being gay. I forget the comedian.
Oh my gosh.
He's a black guy. But anyways, Hetero Awesome Fest.
It's a great name.
Here's the problem is that this is like offensive to people, but why can't we celebrate being heterosexuals?
I celebrate it every day, Sean.
Hey, this is a family podcast. All right.
Whatever that means.
That's right.
It was a very innocent,
I would buy that T-shirt.
It was an innocent,
I celebrate Hetero is Awesome Fest every day.
very innocent comment, and you sully it with your sex talk.
Come on. It's It's Pride Month. Talk about whatever you want.
So do we need a disclaimer on this episode, I think?
No. This is all clean. Yeah, Mark Fitzpatrick. Since it is a family podcast, you've got to have a lot of guts to do this. So
We should send him a shirt.
absolutely.
Dear Mark, you don't know us. You may have never heard of this podcast, but here's a shirt.
Here's the deal. I'd like to get this guy on the podcast. We have to look at his. I'm very interested in the sales numbers June to June.
Oh, for his bar.
Yeah. So June of 24, before he did this, or whenever he wasn't doing it. Maybe he's done this. It sounds like it's the first time he's done it. But I want to see his sales because I think he's going to make a fortune especially in Idaho, right? Talking about preaching to the choir.
Like when the Chick-fil-A thing came in,
Right.
people said, "Oh, they hate it. Everybody boycotting." Chick-fil-A made more money than
I
ever
knew
on these days.
two remain nameless priests, and they went 5 times
Woo!
in one day.
Oh my, that's a
So
lot of
they had
Chick-fil-A.
breakfast, lunch, and
I'll
dinner.
get a lemonade. I'll get a dessert.
They had like a milkshake in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and then I forget in the
It's like the
morning.
Hobbit meal schedule.
Yeah, they just kept going. Yeah, it was like the second tea or whatever. So yeah, God bless you, Mark Fitzpatrick. What a great Irish, God-fearing American.
One of my favorite parts about this is it sounds like it was invented by some 17-year-olds,
Totally.
but this is a man who has a business and a family.
Absolutely. But in all fairness, he could have been like out hunting with his 16-year-old son. Is like, you would be awesome, Dad. Yeah, hetero awesome fest, man. Like, that's a stupid idea. And then he like thought about it and he's like, we're doing it.
I hope he didn't trademark it. I might have one.
We need to find out. This is after we finish recording. We need the name of the bar, and we need
Our next team meeting.
We need to have a team meeting in Idaho. The great pro-life state. The T-shirts. Is there
Hetero
a hetero awesome fest?
No, just
t-shirt?
hetero awesome. Just
No,
have,
it says hetero awesome fest.
just have hetero awesome on the shirt though. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
But no, I like it like when the bands go on tour. So it's
And you want the year on it.
Hetero awesome
No,
fest
I hate
2020.
that. It's been years.
No. And then it's like sponsored by like, I don't know,
40 Days for Life
40
on the
Days for
back.
Life, Bill's Wing Shop, you know,
No masculine
Billy's
identified
Oyster
collectives.
Bar. Yeah, I just want to see if he took sponsorships, because in the end, this is actually following the gay pride movement, right? They decided it worked. Actually, unfortunately, they were gonna celebrate. It's not like this in the closet 80s thing. We don't talk about it. And I think he's a little, well, you know, that's how people would reference it. And somehow that was horrible. And now, I remember the don't ask, don't tell. Now it's you stomp on the table and celebrate it and all that. That's all Mark's doing.
You know, we've done a lot of research for the podcast over
Hold on. We need to do a disclaimer because I don't want to get on and like the internet and find out he's having like kind of like a scandalous like bikini contest or something.
Sure.
Like it
That's a
gets
valid
trashy.
point, Sean.
So we have not looked it up on the internet. We are praising Mark Fitzpatrick. It's on the table that he's a total pervert. We don't know that because we're just recording. So don't write in. I think he's a great American hero.
We've done a lot of research for this podcast in 9.5 years. A lot of footnotes just to like,
This is on you. I take back what I said earlier about you ruining great things in our
yeah, I'm making.
Look at this page.
There's a lot of footnotes here. So
Show that to the camera. Look at all these footnotes. I just have to ask because I think that you got like Forbes on here, Fox Business, Pew Research. Mm-hmm. Where did you find Mark Fitzpatrick?
I don't remember, but I will say
Is your uncle?
Tell you.
this is where I'm leading to this. Of all the research we've ever done and all of the thousands of footnotes we've put together for the podcast, this is my very favorite piece of information that I uncovered in my research.
I don't know. That's a pretty impressive list that should probably be its own podcast. Amazing thing. I want to ridicule myself for criticizing you in the intro.
And this is brought to you by NBC News, the Hetero
Well,
Awesome
Steve's
Fest.
sources are solid. You can ask people who read What to Say When 1 or 2.
I mean,
The sources are gold.
Yes.
I thought I had reached my peak when I found the masculine identified lesbians of color.
That's pretty good.
And then-
that's 1B.
Then Mark comes out and just blows it out of the water.
See, like I'm thinking like the way we operate, where we're like, well, we got to go protest. The masculine identified lesbians of color collective. I'm not sure they have a problem with Mark Fitzgerald or Fitzpatrick. I hope they don't. They probably do philosophically, but how does he not fall into the UBU category?
Yeah.
What do you think?
It-
You're worried that this guy's bar is like a Hooters.
well, now I am, especially you brought that up.
Well, I've like to give
It's like-
myself credit for that, by the way, because I was like,
Let's
how
just
would
show
this-
how
how
hetero
would
we
this
are.
yeah, how would this backfire, Sean? And so we have not looked it up. But if it's like,
It's like a strip
if it's like
club.
Fitzpatrick's Irish Pub and it's got all the like old black wood and a fire pit because they're in the mountains, and it's just good people who go there after work and have a pint, and he's having his hetero thing, and it's all like just fun t-shirts and stuff. That's gold. That's what I'm hoping for. If it's like naked women, dancing on the tables or something, and it totally backfires.
This guy's like a Family Guy, so I don't think it's that.
How do you know that?
It was in the NBC article.
He goes to daily mass.
Lots of owners of strip clubs are Family Guys, Steve.
How dare you speak ill of Mark Fitzpatrick on this podcast? The man's a living saint.
He's going to be in the next Mission Impossible.
So in the
Sure,
last
that's
year,
great.
we have gotten the re-election of Trump, Leo the 14th, and Mark Fitzpatrick.
They say good things come in threes.
Those are the three people that are going to lead us to the promised land. Okay.
This one is interesting about Target.
Yeah.
Steve, what you found here. The stocks are still down, which I was kind of surprised by. I thought maybe they had, gone up a little bit, but it says Target stock is still down by more than a third since its May 2023 Pride campaign. Florida sued Target for concealing the risks of its social activism from shareholders. And Twin Cities Pride severed ties with Target after it retreated on its DEI initiatives.
And
Yeah.
Target in Minnesota are like, that's their home, that's their HQ. When Minnesota became one of the first states that won the gay marriage referendum, Target was like the big leader on the corporate level behind it.
Sponsored.
So that's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than it maybe even sounds.
What I'm going to look up Nike's stock, because Nike was the success story of go woke, to hell with all the white people, go full BLM, and their stock took off. And I'll look it up to see,
Initially.
all right, I have an update. Mark Fitzpatrick's Old State Saloon.
That's
It's awesome. Let's take off next week.
Saloon girls?
No. See? You just won't allow something good to happen in our world.
I'm
How's this?
prepping you for all the possibilities, okay?
Can we ban Heather from Hetero Awesome Fest?
You know what? I'm going to call Laura and Mary Lisa, and I'm going to be like, just so you know, girls, this might be happening.
I'll tell you one thing. Mary Lisa Carney will be into this.
Not
okay?
if they're saloon girls.
Not
That's
if
what
they're
I'm saying.
saloon girls.
That's what I'm saying.
But she is going to be loving a cool Irish bar
Oh,
owner
totally.
doing this.
Yeah.
I feel like if she's cool and not just cool with, but like adores Morgan Wallen, she's going to be okay with our boy Mark Fitzpatrick.
He's in Eagle, Idaho. This guy's just America all over. He lives in Eagle, Idaho. He's not having strippers.
It's possible that he's just the manifestation of our collective goals and aspirations. And
Oh, my gosh.
Look, I'm
Dreams
sorry.
for
I know
America.
we're recording and I'm doing all this, but like, he's on a lot of podcasts. Like, getting him in this room is on the table. I mean, he's on a lot of podcasts.
Well, if he came on NBC News, of course he's on a lot of podcasts. So
Do we
makes
still
sense.
have a campaign in Boise?
They don't have abortion there.
Okay. I just need to write down Old State Saloon, so I got to tell Mary Lisa about this later.
Now, I have a question, Steve. This says Target and Walmart both rolled back their LGBTQ products. And my immediate thought is, what does rolled back mean? Because before it was, here we're at the front, you can't miss us. And now it's, we're kind of tucked away more in the back of the store with, where you can't see it right away. And
There's just less of it.
it's less of it.
There's less of it.
I mean, the fact that it's less in your face is good. It's kind of like the 50 Shades of Grey thing, where that movie was really popular, and they were putting it at the front checkout lines. Where children, can see all that and stuff, and promoting that. And now they're pushing it back into the store.
I have an update.
Oh my God!
No. This is Nike.
Okay.
Oh.
So Nike took off during the BLM stuff. Absolutely took off. Then it went way up again. It hit 172 is its lifetime high. Today it's at 52.
Whoa.
So they tanked big time.
Oh my goodness.
And boy, they hit it hard in 2022, which is from 2021 to 2022. and all through 2022, because that's really, I mean, I think kind of the turning point on some of this stuff is 2 years ago, and then
What's your source, Sean?
their stock.
Okay.
That's when they went down, is 2022?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Can you see it?
Yep.
It's just totally tanked. What's your source? Nike.
Okay.
Cite your sources, man.
Cite your sources, man. But it was at 172, and today it's at 52, recording this podcast. And it's just, so they're not the success story. I take that back. I mean, they're down 34% the last 5 years.
And they've been really pushing the trans thing even of late.
They're down 46% in the last 2 years. Down 46% in 2 years.
Get woke, go broke.
And by the way, like before all this, okay, 2020, Nike was like Coca-Cola, just a great stock. It's like what Warren Buffett said about Coca-Cola. When's the best time to sell? He said never, and it's like Nike's in there. Like Phil Knight just built this thing. It was awesome. How stupid. Mm-hmm. I mean, not to mention, if we're going to talk about Nike a little bit, there's way more competition than there was in the 90s. I mean, when we were growing up, there was Nike and Reebok, and that was it. And Adidas, but they were like the weird brand. But now Adidas is huge. Under Armour exists and is huge.
Yes.
Converse is really, really big. There's just a lot of, you've got things like Hey Dudes and Crocs.
Carhartts.
Those kind of things that are just new. And, people are only going to own so many pairs of shoes. Are you going to make a sexist joke about that?
No.
Okay, I was going to say less fill in the blank. Anyways, that's really, really interesting.
We've got a lot of different companies here, household name companies.
Because we're going long.
Yeah, I mean, we won't get into the details, but we covered the targets. We've got McDonald's. So these are DEI rollbacks. McDonald's, American Airlines, Boeing needs to roll theirs back. Caterpillar, Ford, Harley, John Deere. Who at John Deere was like, you know what, man?
We need more gay stuff in our tractors.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't get that at all.
Lowe's, Molson Coors, Nissan, Polaris, Toyota, Tractor Supply Company. There's a lot of these different things. So one of the things I think is really interesting.
Have you ever been to a Tractor Supply?
No.
It's like one of the most masculine. I just don't get it at all. I don't get it.
One of the things I think should be very encouraging to all of us is the number, we talked about Citi before, the number of financial companies that are bailing on this stuff. We've got Fabrice, I don't know how you say it. Fabrice. Is that the stuff
Fabrice.
you spray to?
No, that's
make it
not.
good?
No, that's
Febreze
not.
is amazing.
That's not the same stuff.
I'm going to pronounce it as Italian as I can in
This
honor
is like
of
Fab Rice, Rice, Fabrice.
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 Hoodarts.
There you go.
Founder and executive director of the Association of LGBTQ plus corporate directors. She said companies in the financial industry, companies like Goldman Sachs, are kind of leaving the LGBTQ plus agenda behind.
Do you know what this is like? This is like what's her face, president of the NARAL, being in Washington D.C. during the March for Life, saying, "Oh my gosh, what's with these people? They're all so young and they're pro-life."
Nancy Beecham, I believe, was her name.
How about that? That's interesting. That's
It's like her
quite a statement.
Her mouth hitting the floor saying they're all so young.
But this is really good news because just a few years ago, the big move was going to be if you even think a pro-life thought or a pro-family thought or a Christian thought, they're going to take your bank account away from you.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Remember, like especially in Canada, like
Canada.
they're taking all the accounts away. So the fact that these finance giants are bailing on this is we'll be able to buy groceries next month, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. And you had said, I want to bring it up, even though you'd said this previously earlier in the outline. I noticed, but didn't notice until you said so on here, that Pride Month forcing its date of importance on your Google Calendar is no longer there. I went and checked my Google Calendar.
I haven't even noticed.
And I was like, what? Because what I used to do
crazy.
is turn off the holidays because it wouldn't let you turn that off. It wouldn't let you select, I'm like, what? This is not a holiday. Why is this on holidays? And I don't want to see this all over my
It's
Google
not
calendar.
on there. I
Not
just
on there.
looked.
Yeah.
Because mine would say the first day of Pride Month, June 1st,
yeah.
and then the last day of Pride Month.
Yeah. It's like, come on.
And I do think the other thing, which is, I think, puts the gay movement in an awkward position, is they're like, So Abraham Lincoln gets one day. He actually has to share it with George Washington. The Veteran Day, you get one day. Memorial Day,
Yeah.
he died for our country, you get one day.
Can't have Pride Day. How dare you?
There's another comedian who said Abraham Lincoln, he didn't even get his own day. He's like, maybe if he had slept with some dudes, he'd get more time. It's like,
Oh gosh.
it was worded differently, but
I'm sure
it's
it
one of
was.
those things where you do put yourself in a position where you're like, we want the whole month, we want half a summer,
Yeah.
and you're like, for what?
Interesting.
You know, and we've had this on a serious note. So many these conversations where they want to have sex, like that's the goal. It's not a defense of an institution. It's defense of a behavior. It's not a condition. This isn't like the Special Olympics, you know, where you're helping people. This is a celebration of your behavior that you somehow grew into taking over a whole month. And I just think that had a clock on it, you know, and I didn't know about the Google thing. That's unbelievable. Okay, so the public policy part. So January 20th executive order, along with 5,000 other executive orders, it is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female, period. The DEI initiatives that promoted discrimination received scrutiny from the federal government or were canceled. There's also an executive order to protect children from gender transition. That was really, really great and just such common sense. We saw state laws protecting kids from transitioning. The military is done with trans, and I'll let you say this quote.
Because I love giving Jill the opportunity to bleep things on the podcast.
But this is an actual quote.
Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with the bleep.
Yeah. We're done with, yeah. So,
We should have our own, there's all the pride flags. I'd like to get a hetero awesome
heteronormative flag. I was thinking
hetero awesome flag.
Hetero awesome flag. I was
Hetero
thinking
awesome
when we were
fest
talking about the
flag.
bar earlier, like, is there
2025.
going to be flags there? That's what I
it's
was,
not the bar, Heather. It's Old State Saloon.
Saloon.
We know the name of it now.
Mea culpa.
And he too is done with the bleep. No more dudes in dresses. That would
Is
be
he
on my
going to get a
flag.
Google alert about this if we talk about it on the podcast?
I hope
I guess
so.
maybe we put it in
You could tag him.
we'll tag him.
And if you could send us some signed merch, we would appreciate it.
I'll wear it. I'll definitely get Old State Saloon. I will for sure wear that shirt.
As long as there's no strippers.
I
That's
may go on and just order a T-shirt.
I'm like, let's keep making that
Oh,
disclaimer.
it's risky. Yeah. No, it's really risky. Okay. What does Pride Month have to do with abortion?
Yeah,
We
stay in
kinda
your
talked about
lane,
this.
Sean.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will get a couple emails on that. We always do.
Yeah.
And here, from my experience, here is how these emails go. My son's gay. So that is 95% of the time. It's kind of like when someone loses their faith and it's like, well, the priest yelled at me or the pastor had an affair with the secretary. And it's always like a personal thing.
Yeah.
And I understand that. We're human beings and that's how it works. But the lack of objectivity with the homosexual movement is insane and dangerous. It really is. And you can do it with abortion and say, but my daughter had an abortion. And that's fine. But you can't deny that your grandchild was killed in that abortion because that actually happened. And for some reason, when it comes to this, it's just like well, what are we supposed to do? Like, and I've had people say he tried with girls and all those kind of things. And, you know, you're sitting here going, I don't think I should be part of this conversation. But this is a struggle that you are not allowed to have as a human being. Just give in. Follow your passions. And we don't do that with alcoholics. We don't do that with drug addicts. We don't do that with guys sleeping around on their wives. He's flesh and blood. I mean, he really liked his secretary. What are you supposed to do? You know, and that we don't do that with other things. And those are the emails that we get, is that it's a personal thing. and you know, you don't understand or whatever. I have relatives that are homosexual, you know, and all of that, and there's division in the family over that, right? Of what we do with that. And so I get that for sure. And I have a lot of compassion on this because I don't think that gays and lesbians, their souls have been done a tremendous disservice. I mean, we'd all be pretty messed up if our sins were actually celebrated and we were told that there was normal behavior. You'd have a tough time getting out of that, including if some churches told you that too.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this is not like we're judging all these people. Christianity has been shameful towards this group of people. And I'll throw Pope Francis under the bus for this too. I think he really did a lot of misguided mercy with the stuff that he wanted to go out on the periphery. That was the quote. They weren't on the periphery. they were leading the charge. And you know, there was a great just sort of affirmation with the nonsense of like blessing gay couples and all that, which is just totally against Catholic teaching. And that wasn't good. That's not good for them. And I think that's usually where it comes from, is this kind of misguided mercy. I'm going to tolerate this behavior because I'm a loving person.
Mercy ultimately, too, I think, is directed toward the individual. You can have mercy on a person. Mm-hmm. If you have mercy on like a group of people, it becomes something entirely different. And in this case, it became sort of enabling of sinful behavior. The go and sin no more was thrown out the window in the name of mercy. It didn't make a lot of sense.
We had friends, and their son is gay, and they kind of fought it, and then they just supported him, and their house kind of became where his gay buddies would gather, you know, and hang out and do all this. And so, I mean, we were in contact. We'd see him at like major things. But I remember like 15 years after he came out, I was talking to the mom, and she was like, they're just all so unhappy. Like, it's really sad. And I don't think that across the board, right? There's probably some gay people listening to this going, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
But I just remember her, like, she like felt bad for them. Like, they're lost and nothing works out. It's partner to partner. It's total chaos and just the mayhem of the lifestyle itself, which I wouldn't know, right? I mean, we don't know. We're like, on TV, they're all happy and clean and thin, you know, but that doesn't, you know, apparently play out. So I don't know. I think that gets lost. When we just accept behavior, it doesn't really do that person a lot of good. Just like it doesn't do any good to say you're going to burn in hell unless you turn or burn, you know, that doesn't do any good. But the affirming the behavior that is not healthy or that you believe is sinful because you're a Christian, just ignoring that, I think, is a huge irresponsible thing to do. Okay.
But the point we shouldn't miss is that, going back to the question, what does Pride Month have to do with abortion? Both of them have a root of sexual sin. So both redefine and attempt to reshape what it means to be human. Very, very true and accurate. And as you well point out, Steve, that they both mutilate children, both physically and I think mentally and emotionally. I mean, when you're talking about enforcing this on children in terms of you know, gender is fluid and all these sorts of things, that's a mind manipulation and mutilation, I would say. But it's just like the church is teaching. It's actually just a sin. Yes.
Like, everybody has sins,
right?
And the buildup of it, of like this glorified sacramental thing, is like, no, it's not. It's actually a sin, but it's just a sin. Like, you're not that spectacular or different. Yeah, you're a sinner. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
But if you celebrate it and think it's good or deny that it's a sin, you can get yourself in big trouble. And I would say on abortion and homosexuality, they're both unnatural. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that are unnatural that we don't address on the podcast because it would actually be way off topic. But this isn't one of them because both of them are rooted in the sexual revolution and in essentially promiscuity. And the philosophy that drives both of them is sex without babies,
Right.
to quote the great Peter Kreeft. Okay, the culture is beginning to heal. Strong majority, 56% of Americans favor prohibiting medical gender transition for minors. That is a 10% increase in just 3 years. An even bigger majority, 66%, want to keep men out of women's sports. It's really bad that that's still only 60.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
That
These
is-
are major,
what is
strong
wrong with
majorities, and I'm
people?
like, ugh.
This is where we need
Yeah.
the feminist.
Right.
I have a bunch of dudes beating up girls.
And Gavin Newsom supposedly agrees.
Oh,
with
he's
this.
running for president.
Yeah.
That's all that is.
Exactly.
Female athletes are refusing to compete against males in a variety of sports at a variety of levels. Riley Gaines is now a household name. She's absolutely fantastic. This is interesting, and Steve has all of his references for this. Multi-year drop in the number of LGBTQ characters in television.
You wouldn't have guessed that, would you?
No,
and that's from the Hollywood Reporter. That's interesting.
I know.
Cite your sources, ladies. Cited the source.
Pew Research, the decline of Christianity has ended. Have you heard this stat where like 30 to 75% increase in people becoming Catholic this last Easter?
Yes.
Like across the country. So some it's 30%, some it's 75%.
I heard that.
Yeah, I've seen that too, which is amazing. But it's just interesting because that's a huge jump.
It's been in decline for so long.
It's been a decline, and the decline stopped. I always wonder if that's because we're older, the millennials, because the millennials are much more conservative than their children were at their age,
than their parents.
than
were.
their parents.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
than
think
their parents.
if you look at it, the baby boomers, they kind of
Who
reject.
we love.
Yes, yeah. With all due respect,
Don't take it personally. Y'all ruined the whole country.
generationally, many of them stayed in the church but just rejected the core teachings, and they were like, "We'll change the church." And I think that their descendants, the Gen Xers and the Millennials, were like, "What's the point?" They just left. And now the Gen Z folks, they're blank slate. They don't come at it with the baggage of being raised by the boomers. They were just raised secular. They see how empty and meaningless it is, and they're turning to God.
Yeah. I too also throw a bone to the baby boomers. I think they themselves left and came back. And by the time they came back, their kids were grown and they didn't raise them in the faith. That's a big problem. And we know a lot of great 40 Days for Life volunteers like that.
Yeah.
That were like, they left the church, raised their kids, came back to the church. Sue Thayer was like that, the late great. And then she said it was hard. She was a Planned Parenthood manager who supported abortion. Then she's this crazy pro-life Christian lady. And she's like, I'm having to reverse how I raised them, you know? So anyways, okay. To sum up all this, we think that basically just the lies have been, I think two things have happened. The lies have been exposed and people have thought about this and its impact. And they got too aggressive and wore everybody out.
Yeah. We had all the listen to the experts, and when the experts have told us everything they said about COVID, Biden is sharper than he's ever been before. Russia was colluding with Trump. All this stuff, we're supposed to listen to the experts, turned out to be false. And so instead of listening to the experts, people are just following their own eyes.
When Ellen came out of the closet, that was a huge deal. I think that was the late 90s. I think I was in high school. Everyone in the world cared whether she was a lesbian or not. Now no one cares.
Right.
And that, you can call that a victory, but it's probably a defeat because of how you got there. Is that you were trying to force everybody to care, and these stats of like, yes, I support homosexuals. Do you want your kid to be one? No. It's just people never actually got comfortable with it, and you beat us over the head with it, and you wore everybody out, and now we don't care. We just don't care. I'm gay. I don't care. We're having a pride march. Crap. It's going to mess up traffic. I don't care. There's just no, there's no like hate crimes, right? This isn't like a persecuted group of people. This is a people that persecute others, and try to force their will on others. It's really became a movement of bullies. And I think that eventually you're just like, I don't have to listen to the bully anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, any closing thoughts?
There's bullies everywhere, but you're right.
You know who's not a bully? The God-fearing, wonderful, America-loving family man, Mark Fitzpatrick.
You know it was
And if you happen to see this episode, we really do want a shirt.
Yeah, Mark, please, and we'll send you a shirt. Come on, we've got some. We'll send you a bunch of stuff, okay? But he'll put up a "Pray to End Abortion" sign in the bar, right next to like the Jameson mirror. So, anyways, we promise you that we are gonna make it to the great place of Eagle, Idaho, for Hetero Awesome Fest 2025. All right, please rate, review, and share this podcast and your good or bad emails. This is a bit of a provocative podcast episode, as some of them are. Please email us at podcast@40daysforlife.com, podcast@40daysforlife.com, and we will see you next time. God bless you.